Waterboarding. Waterboarding is a torture method that simulates drowning. The victim is strapped to a board, often an incline, so their head is lower than their feet. A cloth is then placed over their face and water is continuously poured over it. This causes extreme stress and gives the victim the feeling that they are drowning. This triggers panic and fear with the goal to extract information through this intense psychological pressure. Today, this method is widely condemned as inhumane. The rack. The rack is a medieval torture device that is designed to stretch the human body to its absolute limits. The victim is tied at the ankles and wrists to two rotating rollers at each end of the device. By then turning the rollers, the victim body is pulled in opposite directions, which gradually stretches muscles, dislocates joints, and at the maximum, it can even tear limbs apart. This slow and painful process often leads to permanent physical damage, and in some cases, even death. The rack was often used during the Middle Ages and even the Renaissance to extract information. Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden is a pretty scary torture device, which is designed to inflict extreme pain and cause a slow death. It looks like a tall, coffin-like thing with sharp spikes inside of it. The victim is then placed within the Iron Maiden, and when the doors are closed, they penetrate through the body, but not deeply enough to cause instant death. Over hours, the Iron Maiden would cause extreme pain, and it was used as a brutal execution method. Now, even though a lot of people connect it to medieval Europe, some historians question its actual use during that time, and they argue that it was just fictional and it was invented as a symbol to show medieval brutality. Fum Screws. Fum Screws are a simple, but at the same time very brutal torture device that is designed to put pressure and a crushing force on the thumbs or other fingers. Typically, it was built with two metal bars and screws, and when the screws get turned, the pressure increases on the fingers. This increasing pressure causes constantly increasing pain and often resulted in broken and deformed bones. As a lot of other torture methods, these screws were invented in the Middle Ages to extract confessions. Fling. Fling involved the slow and painful removal of the skin from the victim's body, often leading to excruciating pain and potential death. In history, this method was used as a punishment or execution with victims enduring long suffering. To strip away the skin, they used sharp knives or blades as slowly as possible. It was often used as a sign to others to showcase the consequences if you didn't follow the orders or the rules. This practice has been documented across various cultures and different historical periods, from ancient times to, unfortunately, more recent history. Branding. Branding is a method of torture that involves branding a mark or a symbol into the skin with a hot iron. This process leaves permanent scars and was often done on visible parts of the body. The reason why they did it was usually to mark criminals, slaves, or religious heretics, so they could be identified in public and be humiliated. Just like flaying, it was used as a demonstration to prevent others from committing similar acts. But not only the branding itself was painful and dangerous, but also the possibility of causing infections. Iron boots. The iron boots are a medieval torture device used to crush or burn the victim's feet. Like the name says, the boots are made of heavy metal and are designed to fit tightly around the feet and lower legs. Then the torturers would pour boiling water, oil, or molten metals into the boots, which caused severe burnings and extreme pain. The intense heat would cause tissue damage, muscle burns, and even bone fractures. As a result, the victims were often permanently crippled or in chronic pain. And while it wasn't the goal to kill the victims, a lot of the times the victims died from shock or due to an infection later on. The Julus Cradle. The Julus Crinkle is a torture device that is shaped like a pyramid, on which the victim is forced to sit, with the top of the pyramid being pushed into more sensitive areas of the body. The pyramid's tip and the own body weight of the victim is what caused extreme pain. Scaphism. Scaphism is an ancient Persian torture method designed to cause a slow and excruciating end. The victim is confined in a hollowed-out tree trunk with their head and limbs exposed. Then they are forced to drink milk and honey, leading to severe digestive issues and attracting insects. If that wasn't enough, The victim would then also be smeared with honey to attract even more insects, which then consumed the victims alive. The Peer of Anguish. The Peer of Anguish was often used in religious contexts in the Middle Ages. It resembles a metal pear with petals that can be expanded by turning a screw. The device is inserted into an open body part, like the mouth, and then slowly expanded, which causes intense pain and internal injury. The torture method was often used to extract confessions or punish crimes, especially in the context of blasphemy. The expansion of the pear could cause ruptures, internal bleeding, and severe trauma. Boiling. Boiling is a torture method where the victims are put into boiling water, oil, or other hot liquids, which cause severe burns and often death. To do so, the victim would be placed in a large cauldron or metal pot, with the liquid being gradually heated, which made the pain even worse as temperature rose. Boiling caused often extreme suffering, tissue damage, and shock. Quartering. Quartering, also known as drawing and quartering, is a particularly brutal form of execution that involved tearing the victim's body into pieces. The victim's body would be tied to a wooden frame or horses, and then the horses or machines are driven in opposite directions, pulling the limbs apart. This method was used as a punishment for serious crimes like treason, and was often made a public spectacle. Sawing. Sawing is a method where the victim is suspended upside down and sawed in half. The reason why they choose this position is because it forces the blood to flow towards the head, which then leads to the victim being conscious even longer. Torturers would often do this process for multiple hours, which made this torture method even more gruesome. Breaking wheel. The breaking wheel, which is also known as the Catherine wheel, is a torture device which is used to break and crush a victim's limbs. The victim is tied to a large wooden wheel or cross and then beaten with a heavy club or iron rod. The force of the blows would break bones and cause severe internal injuries. In some cases, the wheel would be turning, which further adds to brutality because you don't know where the hits are coming from. Garrett. The Garrett is a device used for strangulation, which as a cause often led to death. It typically consists of a metal or wooden frame with a tight loop of wire rope or metal that was put around the victim's neck. By twisting or tightening the loop, the victim is strangled and the air is cut off. But that wasn't the only horrible part about it. Oftentimes the neck was break due to the severe pressure that was put onto it. Foot roasting. Foot roasting is a form of torture that involves exposing the soles of the victim to intense heat, such as fire or hot coals. The victim is usually restrained and the feet are placed above the heat source. This method is so brutal because the nerves in the feet are highly sensitive, making the pain excruciating. Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull is an ancient torture device designed to roast victims alive. It is a large, hollow, brown structure, often in the shape of a bull. The victim is then put inside and the bull gets gradually heated, which causes the victim to burn alive. Strappado. Strappado is a torture technique where the victim's hands are tied behind their back and they are hoisted off the ground by their wrists. This causes intense pressure on the shoulders and often leads to dislocation, torn muscles, or broken bones. The victim is usually suspended for extended periods, adding to the pain and suffering.